usually green when it's recording, not red.
No, it's red when it's recording. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
In the Sheets class, it was green when it was on.
No, we're going. We're recording. We're doing it. We're doing the thing.
Give it to him.
Okay.
And I still have my booklets from all the other years.
So we're gonna jump back into this, okay? Carson, are you still trying to get that white out off of your finger? Okay.
That was for Meadow.
No.
Have a seat. Have a seat.
I wiped it on my table. The paper was still wet.
Okay, so Casey, I'm sorry I forgot to start this video, but the only thing that we've done is read For My People out loud. So we're talking about it right now. So just jump in. We're on page 314. Whenever you're watching this, this is where we're at. Okay? So, we're going to go from there. So we're going to look at that second stanza again. So line 6 of the poem. Carson, you brought this up. So we started talking about those words are what kind of words? Chores, working words, right? So how does it change? How does it change the flow of the poem if I say, like, if we put commas in between all of those chores, right?
It wouldn't be as intense. I feel like when you have to read it all together, it gets more, like, intense, and you can feel it more. But if you're just, like, washing, ironing, cooking, it's more of a slow pace, and I feel like people take it seriously.
So what does smushing all of those words together do? What is the feeling that you get?
More overwhelming.
What was that word you just said?
Overwhelming.
Overwhelming, right?
It creates perspective.
Yeah, so I think it creates this overwhelming feeling, right? Lending their strength to the years. Their strength for years of these overwhelming tasks that they had to do, right? And then it says, pruning, patching, those last two lines in that second stanza, dragging along, never gaining, never repeating, never knowing, and never understanding. Oh, never reaping, sorry. Never reaping, never knowing, and never understanding. What does it mean to reap?
Like sowing and
It's like
reaping.
Sowing and reaping, what does that mean?
Receive from work.
To receive, right? So I'm going to sow my seeds or my talents or my whatever into this task. And then you reap what you sow, right? I'm going to gain all the benefits of this hard work that I have, right? But it says never reaping, right? Dragging along, that's a positive or negative connotation to dragging. Negative, right? You never want to be drug anywhere, right? Or you don't want to drag something somewhere, right? That's hard, and it's work, and it's tiring, right? All of those things. Dragging along, never gaining, never reaping, never knowing, and never understanding, right? So they're doing all of this hard work for nothing, right? This overwhelming years of hard work, right?
Do you think they said never knowing because, like, since they were slaves, they never really knew what was going to, like, become of them or happen?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really like that stanza. So when we read that poem the way that it's supposed to be read, right, it adds a different feeling, right? It adds a different context. That's what's really cool about poetry, is that it's not meant to sit on a page, but it's meant to be spoken out loud, right? So the more you speak poetry out loud, the more meaning it takes on, okay? What do you notice about the stanzas? What do you notice about every stanza?
It all starts for something.
Yeah, most of them start how?
For my people.
For my people. And then we have some anomalies, right? For my playmates, for the boys and the girls, for the cramped, bewildered years, right? Lots of really good stuff there, right? Except for the last one, which is where our first period is, right? So what do you think her use of those periods in that last stanza is meant to do?
So, take it in.
Show emotion.
It shows what kind of emotion? Be specific.
Showing that, like, I don't know, I feel like she's describing their lives, and then to a point, I feel like she's just like, it almost sounds like, I know what it, like, I just don't know how to describe it to you. I feel like it's
You're good, just keep talking.
almost like giving up, kind of, like, not giving up, but like, finally you got out what needed to be said about what was happening.
Okay, Carson?
I feel like every spot where a period is, you need an exclamation point. I feel like
Okay.
it should be like a strong paragraph. Like, let earth rise let another world be born. Let bloody peace be written in the skies. Let a second generation full of courage issue forth. Just saying like how blacks are treated really badly and how we need to stop this.
Okay, so it's indicating a what?
It
here?
needs like a turning point.
A turning point, a change, right? So this, we talked about semicolons meaning what?
Pause.
It's a pause, but the meaning of a semicolon
Connection to
Right.
it's connected, right? It's intertwined, okay? So you've got all of these different stanzas talking about different things, right? We're talking in the second stanza about the work that slaves did, right? We're talking about everyday life for African Americans, right? Preaching and doctor and jail and soldier and school and mama and cook, right? Normal life. We're talking about, this stanza's real good. The fourth stanza, right? The years we went to school to learn, right? You're at school right now to learn, to know the reasons why and the answers to and the people who and the places where and the days when. And memory, and this is what you're really learning, right? It doesn't give you specific questions, but it's like we were learning all of these things, right? Knowing how to figure things out and who these people were and the answers to the questions. But what did they really learn, right? So it says, in memory of the bitter hours when we discovered, another word for learning, right? We were black and poor and small and different and nobody cared and nobody understood. And nobody wondered, right? So that's what they were really learning, right? They're going to school, but they're not really learning about school things. They're learning what society thinks about them. And then we have, so we're at childhood, right? Going to school, like seeing your parents work, all of these things. And then we grow up a little bit in the fifth stanza. For the boys and the girls who grew, in spite of these things, to be man and woman. To laugh and dance and sing and play, right? All of these happy things. To bear children and then die of consumption and anemia and lynching, right? What is consumption?
To consume.
Tuberculosis, a lung disease that was widespread in poor communities.
Yeah, consumption was it was like a different term for them to say tuberculosis. So you would die of consumption, and it was in poor communities, right? Almost every black community in the South is a poor community. So it's their community, right? What is anemia, Victoria?
Blood disease caused by a lack of iron, often due to lack of good nutrition suffered by the poor.
So if you don't have enough nutrition, you could be anemic, which means you don't have enough iron. Iron comes from like fresh fruit and vegetables and like all of those things, right? A lot of things that these people did not have, okay? And then what is lynching? Do y'all know what that term means? Have you ever been, do you know? Have you ever heard of a lynch mob?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it means.
Okay, so lynching is another word for hanging. So a lynch mob was a group of people who got together to go find someone, take them, and hang them, right? So to die of disease and hanging, right? So it's like we grow up and we have these really happy lives and we sing and we dance and we have children, but like still there's consumption and there's anemia and there's lynch mobs. So like we have this possibility of happiness and then our circumstances steal that, right? Our poverty, our, whatever it is. So to die of consumption and anemia and lynching. Do you see the stark contrast that stanza has in it? Right? To laugh and dance and sing and play and drink wine and religion and success, right? We're happy to marry their playmates and bear children and then die of consumption and anemia and lynching, right? Did you have a question, Ashton?
Oh, I was just gonna say, can't you also get anemia if you have like whenever you have a kid, like a child, and then they like take too much of your iron? I saw it on a show one time, and she had like 7 kids.
Yeah, there are different, like some people are anemic, and it's because their body doesn't make enough iron or doesn't absorb iron properly, so you have to take like iron pills and stuff like that. But
Okay, so we talked about how like the last paragraph needed like that to it, like an exclamation point. But I think, like, after listening to you, I think what she was doing was she was so passionate about everything you're saying, and I feel like sometimes we're like saying stuff and we're talking so passionate, but finally you get to a point and like reality hits you, and then like kind of like you started talking when you were reading that paragraph, like how down you sounded. It was like she was facing reality in the last paragraph and trying to get the point across for other people to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
I agree with that. Yeah. So we have this moment, right? And then she talks about where we're at now in that 6th stanza. For my people thronging, right? She's talking about communities that were heavily populated by African Americans. 47th Street in Chicago, and Lenox Avenue in New York, and Rampart Street in New Orleans, right? African American communities which were thriving but poor, right? So we talk about like the Harlem Renaissance, where all of this creativity came out of black communities, but at the same time, they were just like destroyed by poverty, right? Lost, disinherited, dispossessed. What does it mean to be dispossessed?
Not terribly.
Deprived of the possession of something, especially land or a house.
Yeah, it means you don't own a place where you can live, where you feel safe. So dispossessed. Deprived and dispossessed, and happy people filling the cabarets and taverns and other people's pockets and needing bread and shoes and milk and land and money and something all our own, right? So we're not living in places that we own. We're just like living on borrowed time, basically, right? And we're making all of these other people happy. We're singing and we're dancing and we're, performing in cabarets, and we don't even have enough money to buy food for our kids, right? For my people walking blindly, spreading joy, losing time, being lazy, sleeping when hungry, shouting when burdened, drinking when hopeless, tied and shackled and tangled among ourselves by the unseen creatures who tower over us omnisciently and laugh. What is that imagery?
She's talking about white people, I think.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean? What does omnisciently mean?
Acting with complete knowledge of the world.
Yeah. So these unknown, right? It wasn't like a specific person that was oppressing them, right? These unseen creatures who tower over us, knowing all about the world and laugh at our circumstances. For my people blundering and groping and floundering in the dark of churches and schools and clubs and societies, associations and councils and committees and conventions, distressed and disturbed and deceived and devoured by money-hungry, glory-craving leeches, preyed on by facile force of state and fad and novelty by false prophet and holy believer, right? So she's like saying there's no one that's helping us, right? There's no one that's coming to our rescue. And then she says, for my people, standing, staring, trying to fashion a better way from confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, trying to fashion a world that will hold all the people, all the faces, all the Adams and Eves and their countless generations. She's like, we're trying to make a world that can hold all of us, right? And so then we start with the change in punctuation, right? She's like, all of this is a unique thought. It's new. It's different, right? Let a new earth rise. There's change, right? Let another world be born. Let a bloody peace be written in the sky. Why do you think she calls it a bloody peace?
A bloody peace?
Mm-hmm.
It was like peace for them, but it wasn't peace.
Mm-hmm. What do they have to do to get this peace?
Fight
For it, right? It's not going to come easy, right? Look back at stanza 1, and it says their dirges and their ditties. What is a dirge?
Slow songs expressing sorrow.
Yeah, slow songs expressing sorrow, like funeral songs, right? A dirge. So it says, let a people loving freedom come to growth. Let a beauty full of healing and strength, of final clenching, be the pulsing in our spirits and our blood. Let the martial songs be written. What does martial look like? What does that word remind you of?
There was like, back then people called marshals like fire marshals and those type like.
Yeah, so a martial song is like a military song or like a war song or a song that you're going to sing when you go to battle. It's a martial song, okay? So she's saying, hey, let these martial songs be sung. We're going to fight for it. And then she says, let the dirges disappear. And so remind me what a dirge is?
Slow song expressing sorrow.
Yeah, so let these sorrowful songs disappear. We're not going to be sad anymore. We're going to fight for peace. Let a race of men now rise and take control. We're going to take control of our own fates, right? we're going to take control of what we can do for ourselves. That makes sense? You with me? Yeah. Pretty cool poem. Let's look at the next one, Incident. Natasha Trethway. This one is a lot easier to read. Does anyone want to read this one for me? Carly?
We tell the story every year, how we peered from the windows, shades drawn, though nothing really happened. The charred grass now green again. We peered from the windows, shades drawn, at the cross trussed like a Christmas tree. The charred grass still green. Then we darkened our rooms, lit the hurricane lamps. At the cross trussed like a Christmas tree. A few men gathered, white as angels in their gowns. We darkened our rooms and lit hurricane lamps, the wicks trembling in their fonts of oil. It seemed the angels had gathered, white men in their gowns. When they were done, they left quietly. No one came. The wicks trembled all night in the fronts of their oil. By morning, the flames had all dimmed. When they were done, the men left quietly. No one came. Nothing really happened. By morning, all the flames had dimmed. We tell the story every year.
Awesome. Okay, so we answered some questions about this, right? This is a story about something that happened in her childhood, right, Natasha? And it's a story about the KKK putting a burning cross on her lawn. Scary moment, okay? Scary moment, especially for a kid. But do you think as a child she understood the context of this? Maybe not, right? Because she's writing this from the perspective of a child, right? And she's comparing the cross to what? A Christmas tree, right? What does it mean to be trussed?
Tied up like tightly.
Tied up tightly. So when it says trussed like a Christmas tree, so a Christmas tree,
When you take it out of the box is like...
yeah, it's tied really tight. And a lot of times they would wrap white cloth around the cross and bind it really tightly, because then they would soak that in like kerosene or something flammable, so that when they lit it, it would immediately flame up, right? And then it would burn for a really long time, because then the kerosene would burn up, then the fabric would burn, and then the fabric would ignite the wood underneath, right? So that it would burn for a really, really long time. So what she's comparing, right, this cross to a Christmas tree, right? I want you guys to look at that poem, and I want you to highlight anything that you associate with religion.
Why does she repeat so much stuff?
That's a great question. We'll talk about it. Mm-hmm.
Like it's just the title.
Wooden landscapes that I know. Anything you would associate with religion. Anything you would associate with religion. Okay, what are some of the things that you highlighted, Carson?
I highlighted all the time you said, as the angels, like white as angels in their gowns.
Mm-hmm. Angels. Mm-hmm. What else?
And then I highlighted the Christmas tree.
Christmas tree. What else?
That's it. Cross.
A cross, right? Yeah, I agree with all of those. What is the feeling you get when you read this?
Scared. Like, you can just imagine, like, because if this happened today, I feel like we'd all be pretty scared if, like, someone just came to our house and was burning a cross in our front yard. But like back then with everything that was going on, you can just imagine how much more scary it would be, even though you didn't fully understand it because you were a little kid.
I want you to take the context that we know away from this poem, right? Because does it ever say that, I don't know, I want you to take the context away. Does that make sense? Not really. So the context of what we know, because does it mention the KKK? No, right? It talks about men dressed like angels, right, in white gowns. What is like the words that she uses? What feeling does that invoke?
Christmas?
Christmassy, right? What feelings do you associate with Christmas?
Happiness.
Happiness, Christ, right? It is calm, right? If you read this poem, right, we tell the stories every year, how we peered from the windows, shades drawn, the charred grass now green again, right? So is it still burned? The charred grass now green again, right? It's green now, right? Because it's years later, and they're thinking back. We peered from windows, shades drawn, at the cross trussed like a Christmas tree, this charred grass still green. Then we darkened our rooms, lit the hurricane lamps. Have any of you ever been to like a Christmas Eve service with like candles? Yes. Like a candlelight service kind of thing? That's the picture that I get, right? Hurricane lamps are kind of this picture above, right? With a vault of oil that the wick goes down into. And so the wick continues to draw up oil, which is how the light stays burning, right? A few men gathered, white as angels in their gowns. We darkened our rooms and lit hurricane lamps, the wicks trembling in their fonts of oil, right? There's nothing in this that, like, there's no language in this that is super fear-filled or angry or, like, horrifying, right? So why do you think she wrote the poem the way that she did? What is she trying to create?
Certain things that she wants to stand out to people that stood out to her, maybe.
What contrast is she trying to create?
Christmas to
Bad things to good things.
Bad things to good things, yeah. Like if you read this, we know with context that this experience was probably terrifying, right? But the way that they looked and the imagery that they chose to use, right? The cross and the white gowns, right? If you just take KKK out of it and you think cross, white, angels, what kind of feeling do you get from a group that has those three things as their symbols?
Like what she knew about Christmas and what her family celebrated about Christmas to what was happening.
Yeah, it's comparing two kind of religious ceremonies, right? We're talking about Christmas and the things that you do and how exciting that time is and how peaceful it is. But then at the same time, there was this, like, the group, the KKK, who called themselves a religious organization, right? They thought they were doing the Lord's work. And so they had crosses and dressed in all white and, you know, all of these things. But really they were so hate-filled and angry and bitter. Yeah, all of those words, right? So there's this stark contrast between these two ideas, right? Between like crosses and angels and Christmas and then what was actually happening and what was actually going on. And the words that she chooses kind of invokes that contrast, right?
Can I answer my phone? It's my mother. I don't know. I heard it ringing.
Sure. I'm fine with that.
Hello. In English class. Well, so did I, but they haven't called us out yet. Yeah. Oh, I didn't. I said, Coach Copeland, can I answer my phone because it's my phone? And she said, sure. That would be great. Okay, thank you. Bye, love you.
Are we doing work?
Coach Copeland. Okay, so we're supposed to get out at 10:40, and the bus is supposed to pull out at 11:05, but they still haven't.
Go ahead. So this poetry study that I just gave you, we're going to complete in class, but if you can do it for homework, that would be great. It is two-sided, so you're going to fill out one side for my people and the other side for incident, okay? You're going to illustrate the poem for me. So draw a picture that means something from that poem. And then you're going to check the boxes for figurative language. It's defined for you in that little box. So you're going to check the boxes for, like, if that is in the poem, okay? And then you're going to choose one example of one thing that you checked, and you're going to write it down. And then you're going to list any sensory words or sensory images. Sensory is how we create imagery, right? Imagery connects to the 5 senses, which are sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, right? So anything that connects to those 5 senses, right, is an imagery word, right? It's going to create either a picture in your mind or call back to a memory of something that you smelled, right? So it's not going to have all of them, and it might only have 1 or 2. It will have some, but I want you to write those things down, okay? Does that make sense? Yes? Any questions?
What does this mean by
No.
illustrate the poem?
Draw a picture.
That's it?
Yep.
Why doesn't it say draw a picture?
Because illustrate is a better use of verbiage.
Why not illustrate in pencil?
Because it doesn't have to be in pencil.
Illustrate in
I
writing.
also don't really care if all 5 of you want to work together on this. I'm fine with that. So,
Oh, cool.
all right. Casey, I will email this thing to you. It looks like this. It's double-sided, and then you can do it on these 2 poems. Okay, bye.
Can I move to that chair?
Yes, you may.
We're ready for the rest.
Ready?
Wait for me, Lauren. I'm coming.